Hello, everyone. I believe we are now live and back. I'm Jared Capel. You might have caught some of my stream 2 days ago. Since then, we've ended regular first three rounds and we're into the playoffs here featuring Jackson Smylie, up 4 games over Noah. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the Josh for running the whole event, and unfortunately, he didn't get quite the results he wanted, but somebody was going to have to finish at the bottom, and I can't say from watching that it seemed like he played any weaker than anyone else. Um, and also a big shout out to Sid, who managed to win his first 2 matches, coming in as the low seed. Extremely hard, especially with the word deficit that he has compared to a player like Jackson and Noah, but he fought hard, and for a while it looked like he was poised to become one of the 2 finalists. The 2 finalists here, yes, and I do agree with Adam that the directors are at a disadvantage. Josh has put so much work into getting the stream set up, the cameras, overseeing everything. And Sid has been working a full-time job and driving really far, adding to a lot of fatigue as he's been trying to fight through it. I did speak with Sid a lot this morning by text, and just to tell him how well I thought he was playing, and I hope these players don't take any of our commentary personally. We're trying to give an event with some of the top players in North America, and that does open them all up to being criticized at times. But overall, I feel like all 4 players have been playing so well, and I've been spending the whole weekend when I've been able to catch the games thinking of just how well they've been playing. And from a commentator's seat, you end up feeling like they're finding plays that maybe you wouldn't have. I know even Will was saying he watches Josh and Jackson and all these other players and thinks how much better they seem than he is. Uh, could be a cognitive bias. It could be that when you're commentating, you have so much to deal with. But either way, it just shows you how well these 4 players are playing, and you really have to take fatigue into account. They've been really packing in the games this weekend, and yet the quality of play hasn't seemed to dip at all. All the players seem so sharp, consistently finding great plays. And now we are into the finals. Jackson's up 4-0, and yet Noah still seems to be in good spirits. Hasn't seemed to be tilted at all. You can see him laughing right now. One of my favorite things about Noah is how he always seems to be laughing, always seems to be in a good mood, doesn't seem to get rattled. And yes, Josh, thank you. He is the organizer, while Jackson's the director, but I think in this case the organizer has done a ton more work than the director. And look at that, Noah is drawing the tiles. We're set to begin. He really needs a win here to start turning this set. It's a best of 13, so Jackson is now 3 games away from victory, but Noah has a lot of time to come back. We saw him fall 6 games to 2 in the original set versus Jackson, and instead of letting that get him on tilt, he continued to stay calm, play his game, and managed to claw back with a big 6-1 victory over Sid to make the finals. If I were Noah, I'm sure I'd be taking it to heart that he lost 6-2 to Jackson and is now down 4-0, meaning he's sitting at 2 wins and 10 losses against Jackson. You'd think that's gotta hurt, but he doesn't seem to be phased at all. I think he's got the mental aspect of Scrabble down so well, and I expect him to continue to play really strongly. So he's going to set up possibly a Nomi on his opening rack. That's an uncommon 6-letter word, but looks to be the one he's going to play. And he does. So he's playing long here. Perhaps that'll help him get one of the 2 unseen blanks. Leaves himself an A. Jackson is looking at a rack with 2 O's. Josh is pointing out how Anomi has now been played 3 times. I think a lot of players might not know that was good without an S. It looks a bit funny, but when it keeps coming up, it certainly is a play that all 3 players by now will know with a great deal of confidence. So Jackson here is going to be looking to see if he has any plays that will hit both double scores. That would be the obvious spot to really score on this board. Uh, that is, if he doesn't have a bingo. With those two O's, it's looking unlikely, but it's not guaranteed. He's going to have to first look. Looking at the options on Quackle, he does have a double-double. It's, I'd say, a common word, but not one that comes up too often. I don't think it takes an S, so we'll see if Jackson is able to find it. I'm going to put the alphagram in the chat window to see if maybe people can try and unscramble this word themselves, because I do have this advantage of being able to look on Quackle as we're playing, which is showing me all the potential options. And yeah, it is relevant to the current time, but not for much longer. So Josh has found the play. Will Jackson be able to find it? He's taken a bit longer than usual. He's been playing pretty fast in this tournament, but I'm not surprised he's taken his time. A lot to consider on this rack. And he hasn't found... Yeah, nice job, Churro. It is pre-noon. Food is a nice overlap that'll keep the board nice and closed. I'm not sure if that's what he's going for, but it will be effective there. And Noah is looking at 3 E's as well as a W and a Y. DE can turn into day, D-E-Y, or D-E-W for do. He can look to underlap beneath the first 3 letters of Nomi. And he does have the hook above Po being an A for Apo, so he could look to overlap that way. I think whatever he does, we're going to see a significant amount of overlap tiles. And looking over to the left, look at that. Jackson, already up 4-0 in the set, has not only a blank, but a balanced rack to go with it. So he's poised to get the first bingo down in this game. Noah will play a very fun word of weenie. I'll give a definition of that being a hot dog, but pood and weenie. If you have a bit of a juvenile mind, you might think these are some funny words. Let's see what pood actually means. Unit of weight, not what I would have guessed. Josh is running... Oh no, Josh has ended a prediction about if Noah was able to win the last game, and he unfortunately wasn't. I say unfortunately only because I want the series to get back close to tied, not because I have a preference of either of these players over the other. In fact, coming into the tournament, I would have been happy with any of the 4 of them winning. And one of the great things about Scrabble is in this tournament, these 2 players ended up in the finals, but if we were to run this tournament over and over and over again, I think you'd see different combinations of who is to make the finals. There's just so much variance in Scrabble, and anyone can have a good day, people can miss plays, and people can get lucky with the tiles. And in this case, all 4 players are so closely rated, so strongly talented. These 2 were the top seeds and perhaps a lot of people's favorites for making the finals, but like I said, any of the 4 players could have made it. Sid was 1 point away from beating Jackson in their set, and that could have really swung things. So, looking at Jackson's rack, has anyone found a bingo yet? He has I-N-K-O-R-E blank. As I said, it's a very balanced rack. There are a lot of bingos. He will find one. What he's doing now is deciding which bingo is going to set up the shape of the board that really suits what he's looking to accomplish. So on Quackle here I can pull up a few. Non-skier, that's a fun word. Reinvoke, kerosene. So there are a lot of common words that I think that players in the chat, even if they're not players of high-level Scrabble themselves, I think they are words that you could have found. There are also less common words like Donaker and einkorns, as pointed out by axcertypo, whose channel we are on today. Noah himself is looking at a very nice rack. I take the time, see if you can unscramble those letters in his rack. It will come up with a few common words. And so even when Jackson gets his bingo down now, look for Noah to be able to respond. Looks like a new prediction's being run by Josh about who will win Game 5. So If you have channel points, why not use them and see who you think is going to win this game? By running this poll a few turns into the game, we have a bit more an advantage in the poll because looking at the scores, it might give you a thought about who's able to pull this one out. So use that advantage and try and earn some more channel points, which you can redeem for a lot of really cool things on Josh's channel. Looking at the bottom of my screen, I can see I have over 37,000 points, and I'm not quite sure what to do with them, but the other day I did redeem them to make Josh speak in French. Oh, thank you, Josh. Calling me a VIP. I'm definitely a P. I don't know if I'm an I, and certainly wouldn't call myself a V, but I will take the compliment as it's passed on. Chiro's bragging about how many chips she has as a former poker player. If she had 48K, she'd be pushing them into the middle. Zero wants to end the stream. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that's a bit tongue-in-cheek, and perhaps Zero has tens of thousands of points to play with. Jackson's really using a lot of clock here. He's dipped below 6 minutes, but finally we're going to see einkorns come down to the N in weenie. And that'll bring him up to 100 points total. Josh, it's possible not everyone is back from the break because we told them the games wouldn't start at 11:45. So that could be why there aren't as many people voting on the poll as normal. But I think as the next few minutes go on, we'll see more people come back and we'll see the chat get a bit livelier. People want to troll Josh at all times. I was telling Kenji that he should be doxing Josh, so I myself have been guilty of that. So I mentioned how Noah has common bingos here. One of them would be a word like urinate. So after weenie and pood, we could continue our sort of juvenile jokey words. Okay, no, I already entered einkorns, but it looks like Jackson's going to now play Doneker, which is also reasonable. Let me just change that in Quackle before I have the whole game missed. He played it through the N and weenie still. Another word Noah could form is ruinate or taurine, but is he going to have any spots to play them is the next question. One thing to have a bingo on your rack, but you have to make sure it's actually going to fit on the board, and surprisingly, I do not see any way he can make that happen. Quackle is confirming Noah doesn't have a bingo. Very frustrating position when you're looking on one of the nicest racks in all of Scrabble and just nowhere to play it. If this doesn't sum up Noah's day to start, I don't know what would. I did miss the first two games, but I did catch the last two, and hearing Will's commentary, it sounds like things couldn't quite go Noah's way. Yeah, there is a bit more time to vote. You might want to be voting on Jackson. He's just drawn the X, and you can see there's a few spots where the X might fall beneath the E in weenie, next to the O of Doneker. Next to the E of Doneker, playing down, you could play the word X'd, X-E-D, to cross something off. And one nice thing about that is you can't put an S on it. It's already in the past tense, so you could play it there without risk of opening up the triple word score. Noah's really staring because if he were to miss a bingo here, the difference in valuation on whatever play he would make versus a potential bingo is just massive. If he had a bingo here, he can't miss it. Oh, telex, yeah, even nicer. So not only can he hit the X next to the O of Doneker, but he can make it up to the double word score, and that'll be a huge score. His X would be multiplied by 2, and then multiplied by 2 times 2. So times 6 overall. The X is worth 8, so 48 points for the X alone, if my math is right. And as Josh will tell you, my math is often not right. Times 4 times 2, I still think it's times 6. Oh, Churro tried to put an S on X'd. Yeah, it means like to cross something off, X'd off. It's not a normal word. I personally don't think it should be in the dictionary, but there it is. Noah's gonna do what I think is perfectly reasonable, which is fish off the worst of his tiles, the U. Um, and he should have a bingo next turn pretty much with any draw, and he'll draw the N, and that will really lead to bingos. Jackson has the EX lined up, but I think he'll find telex that Josh suggested, unless there's a better play that we both missed. Nope. So a big hit there for Jackson, extending his already 45-point lead. He's now up over 100, but Noah is looking at a very nice rack, and this time there will be bingos. I would be looking first through the A and the E. Also, the T and the R look very promising. Yeah, I do see through the R. It is a common word, and yet Noah has found it. Inerrant. I say common. Churro is probably going to tell me that it's not so common, and it's not something you hear a lot conversationally, but I think it is a word a lot of people would be familiar with. Looking at Quackle, he also had the option of intranet, which would be like the internet, but I believe the definition is within a closed server, like something like that. I'm not a tech person, as those of you who watched the stream 2 days ago saw that I didn't even know to mute my own feed. Churro, you can't define while you did the prediction, so thankfully Josh jumped in to help. I'm not sure what Jackson's sixth tile is here. We see FACUMD. He'll be looking through that I of inerrant, which you can double and then hit the triple word score, so it would be times 6. I think though Factum he has set up on his rack, and that looks like it's going to score more than anything. So it would leave the I open, but it will score 48. And when you're already up 35, it's hard to turn down 48 more points. I don't see anything through. Okay, so we know what his last tile is now. It's an R. That'll help consider his options. So knowing it's an R, he could play firm through the I if he really wanted to take out that big spot. But he will go with the highest scoring play, which is Factum, and that looks reasonable. It'll give Noah a chance at that big hot spot, and he does have some big scoring tiles with the Q and the Z, as well as the V, which does score 4. He'd really want to get the Z to be able to go down, but it's not looking like he has a play that'll make it. If he wants to really open the board, and that might not be a bad idea at this score, he could play Zoea parallel to telex, hanging that Z in space. That would be dangerous. It might allow him to hit QI above inerrant the next turn, because he's going to want to find a play that scores a lot this turn and then allows him to score a lot next turn. When you often have a couple really high scoring tiles, it can be nice to play them one turn at a time. One letter at a time. Okay, he's going to go with ogive. I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. Does anyone know? So he's leaving a lot of high scoring tiles. And Jackson's drawn into crofted, which I'm almost positive is an acceptable word, but is there a spot on this board? He could also play factored through the A. That's going to double, and that's going to really extend Jackson's lead. There's no way he's going to miss a play like factored. Crofted is acceptable. I see it as one of Quackle's options as a 6, but it won't play as a 7. The other bingo available is through the E, but it won't double. It would have been defector. So yeah, Jackson continues his hot play. No, all he can do is sigh, but he continues to stay calm at the table. You gotta love that gamesmanship by Noah, not getting rattled. Yeah, factum and factored. The fact is that Jackson continues to draw so well. This is a best of 13, so Noah does have time to come back. I really appreciate that it's a best of 13 because Noah and I have been playing best of 13 sets over the last month or two on a site called ISC. We've been playing blitz games though, so they're only 3 minutes per side. And I did manage to beat him in one of those sets, which has got to be one of the highlights of my Scrabble life, because beating Noah in blitz is just something that doesn't really happen very often. Noah makes the obvious play here of dropping the Q. Jackson does have a U, but it's his only vowel, so he's not going to be able to go down from that Q. But with two S's and an H, he should be able to score here. So the first play I would consider is just SH beneath do and weenie. That's going to score a lot, but the problem with that is it's leaving WGUTS, which is not a leave you want. WUG is a really ugly letter combination. Yeah, Noah doesn't want to come to Woogles. We're going to have to respect that. I would like him to come, especially as a speed player. Woogles has such wonderful blitz and ultra blitz capabilities, especially you can like lie your play on the board ahead of time, so when it's your turn, all you have to do is hit enter or hit play. If he ever were to come, I think we'd all love to have him there, but at this time he's enjoying ISC, and so I've been setting up matches to play against him because even though I prefer Woogles, and I'll put the code for Woogles in the chat, I would play on any site if it meant playing with a player as talented and as just enjoyable to talk with as Noah. Great meeting him in person for the first time, but I've been playing him online a long time, and we've always had great conversations. Recently I've been able to close the gap a bit, but I can't imagine ever getting to his level. He's just such an amazing player in all aspects. Word knowledge especially, but also with strategy. Is now being lined up on Jackson's rack, so perhaps he might go with the play I saw. Let's see what Quackle's thinking. There's this really obscure word, tusseh, Tusseh, which would pluralize both pood and anomi. But I don't think he wants to use both S's, and he doesn't, so he will go with the initial play that we were probably thinking. Noah has an S and the Z. Not for that V, and perhaps if he could get rid of one of the L or the N, his rack would be looking quite nice. So he's getting there. In Scrabble, often what happens is you're trying to score a couple plays until you can get to a rack where you can bingo. Bingos do score, but what I mean by scoring is picking up maybe 30, 40 points by hitting some overlaps, hitting some multiplier squares, putting down some of your high point tiles. Noah does have the Z, which he's probably going to play here. He could also look to set it up, but being behind so much, he really needs to bingo, so I think the Z's going to come down. He'd really like to get rid of the V as well, but I don't think he's going to be able to play both. He could play Zeta through the D and factored. That would be an initial thought, but that would leave LNSV, which he doesn't want to do. This looks a lot more reasonable. Just to play Zen, and it'll leave him with Slave as the leave, and those tiles can really form a bingo easy. Not when you draw UA, unfortunately, although he does evaluates, I see. So if the T in Telex stays open, we could see Noah get back into this game and into this match, as I know everyone in chat really wants to see, myself included. Once again, we can't see Jackson's 7th tile. Perhaps between games, Josh can remind Jackson to keep the tiles a bit more centralized on his rack. But we do see 6 of them. WETSUG. So And we might be able to figure out his 7th tile based on remembering what he had last time. But I don't. So let's try and think what he can play knowing these 6. Yeah, don't bother him during this game. And good point at pointing out his clock. So despite having a very big lead of 106 points, he's down to 6 minutes. And that's really low. Often players want to leave about 6 minutes just for the end game itself. So I wouldn't worry too much about Jackson's clock compared to other players because he's one of the best blitz players in the world, just as Noah is. Um, Joe, Jackson, excuse me, continually plays speed games against the computer and wins. And oh, that's a great overlap. That's going to score a lot. Jackson continues to rack up the points. Noah can do nothing but throw a hand to his forehead. I think he's got us evaluates here. I'm honestly surprised it hasn't come down already. Noah's been such a fast player when he has a bingo in this tournament. He's so confident with his word knowledge that he tends to know right away that he has a bingo or he doesn't. And Will was mentioning on it earlier how important that is in Scrabble tournaments. If you don't have to waste time wondering if you have a word, you can spend so much more time on strategy. And I hope this stream has been showing you how much strategy there really is involved in Scrabble. Oh, Jackson's on hold. Okay, so Noah's not sure if Jonaker takes an S. You can see he's on hold because Jackson has not drawn his next 5 tiles. Jonaker perhaps looks like other words that don't take an S, like Johnerd. In this case, it does take the S, so Noah would really be hurting himself if he were to challenge here. Let's get the definition of Jonaker to explain why it does take the S. So a Jonaker is just an outside toilet. So toilet is a noun, and nouns can be pluralized with an S. So, he did reach forward and he did make the challenge, and this is really going to hurt his comeback chances, especially if that T ends up getting blocked next turn. Yeah, Churro, I think I even tried Johnards against Jackson in one of my early tournaments. Oh, it came off the board, so why does my Quackle have Donaker as being valid? Let me check Ziziva. I have Ziziva on my computer. Oh, he played Moniker. Okay, that's very confusing. I can't believe Moniker came on the board originally when Donaker was clearly a word. Moniker looks terrible to me. But, okay. Now, I don't want to go back and change the whole Quackle, because to go back to the Donaker turn, I'm going to have to undo everything. So instead of just doing this, I'm just going to pass this turn for Jackson. Whoops. Sorry, while I do some scorekeeping to make sure we're back on track with the Quackle. The good thing about Quackle is we can use it for high-level analysis. Did anyone see what Jackson's rack is here? He has GUT, which will play through Gus. He had an SE as well. I'm not sure what the rest of the rack was. But Noah has drawn the second blank, so what looked like game over for Noah is all of a sudden looking quite promising. Evaluates, of course, does take a front hook of an E for evaluates. It could be a way to fork the board and create lanes above and below if needed. It won't be played on this turn or any turn shortly, but it is something to keep in mind. Noah does have the blank, but the rest of his rack is not as appealing. He's just going to look to dump maybe 2 or 3 tiles here to position himself to bingo next turn. At the moment, the promising bingo lane would be to the G at the top of the board, using his blank as an N for ing, so you'll probably see at least one I and the blank stay. He's going to block that lane, but he's going to do so by scoring, which looks reasonable, especially with the score. So Blah scores 34, and all of a sudden, Noah's only 28 points behind. But Jackson's rack looks promising. He has jests as well as a W and perhaps an R. I'm not quite sure what the 7th tile is once again. He's down to about 4 minutes. He's now lined up jets. He could play it through hooking valuates to evaluates, and that would really close things down. There would be no room for a bingo to come in any of that portion of the board. The last remaining lane would be a word that plays parallel to factored, the F in factored, so ending in either an E, an I, or an O. I suppose also a bingo could come down through the Q, probably ending in QUE. Looking at the pool, all the U's are gone, so the blank would have to be a U, so that makes that lane much harder to hit. Is there another spot for jets to be played? No, I don't think so, but he's going to save the S. Okay, it doesn't telegraph to Noah that he has the S, which is important. It was only going to score one more. I don't think Jackson minds keeping the S here, because he will be able to use it later to score. Or perhaps for defensive purposes. Noah's going to do his tracking, and now look down to a very nice rack, but I don't think there's a bingo that plays, and if not, he's going to have a really hard time creating a new lane. I think the board is pretty much exhausted. If Jackson can just close the board a bit more in his next turn, Noah might be good chances to bingo. Oh, sorry, through the E of that ogive word, ogive. I still don't know how to pronounce it. I don't remember if I defined it, so let's see what it means. Pointed arch, okay. It might be an architectural term of some sort. It does take a D, but I don't think it takes an ing. So I think the ogive, psychological atom one. Whoops. I think ogived. Oh, no, it doesn't take the D. See? This is the problem when you try and sound smart on stream, but you don't know your words as well as the two players you're commentating. It's OG I'm thinking of that takes the D, and that's also an architectural term meaning molding. Ogival would be the other form. Josh is considering that you could extend evaluates. Unfortunately, none of those extensions would reach the double word score. Yeah, I am thinking of OG, yeah. That was definitely my mistake. Hopefully, making these mistakes on stream will help me remember them better. I do remember a couple of my blunders from 2 days ago, thinking tenorine was a word, for example. Although if I thought about it further, I would have realized tenord is not a word, or rodent I knew was the only 7 in that rack. People often find when they make mistakes in big games, or in this case, in big commentary, it makes you remember it more. So let's not punish ourselves too much for our mistakes, but instead try to learn from them. It's very easy to focus on your flaws, but at the same time, you should also be focusing on everything you're doing well. As long as we continue to improve and have fun, I think that's the most important thing. Kicking, who is new to the stream and was really appreciative of seeing this content, is really impressed with the word use. And I can tell you that the players here don't necessarily know what these words mean. Top level players often study based on probability. So what they really want to learn are the words that come up most often. So there are 12 E's in the bag, for example. So but there are only two V's. So you're going to want to learn the words with the letters that come up most often. So a word like relation would have all common words, all common letters, A, E, I, L, N, T, O, R. And by I'll link the programs that people use to study these words. And study is a very harsh sounding word, but actually going through these quizzes can be a lot of fun, and you pick them up over time. I definitely didn't know a lot of those words before I started playing, but with time I have been able to learn them. Here's the link to Aerolith, where you can do daily quizzes, created by Cesar, who is also the founder of Woogles, the site we play on online. Noah drops in, hoping to be able to bingo either to the F or through the E. Unfortunately, we can see he drew OI to his already vowel leave, and that is going to really kill his last chance, because Jackson will take out one of his two lanes on this turn, and Noah won't be able to bingo to the other lane, and then on Jackson's next turn, Jackson can really close things down. So Noah's chances of winning have really plummeted. Scrabble, unfortunately, does have a lot of luck involved in the short term. When you draw into the bag, you can pull out anything, and in this case, he pulled out two tiles that didn't match with the tiles he already had. He does have the O to hook the J to form J-O. The first thing you should do if you want to learn some more words, Kicking, or any other player who's watching, is to try and get those two-letter words down. By doing that, it allows you to hook words in different directions. And the two-letter words, there aren't very many of them. They can be learned quite quickly, especially just through playing. When you keep playing, you'll see people play words like J-O or Z-A or G-I, other words you might not be familiar with. But in learning the two and even three-letter words, it can really help boost your score. You don't have to learn words like Anomi or Telex or Donaker to be able to play at a level. To play at the very top level you would, but there's a lot of fun to be had without studying words. I didn't study words for well over a decade. I just enjoyed playing, especially speed games. Oi, exactly, and that is what oi means. So OI is an acceptable word. It was added in one of the more recent updates to the dictionary. OY had been there a while, and that's the more common way to spell that interjection of oi, a word my mother uses all the time, and I like to think I do too. Looking at Noah's rack, I'm not sure what I'd be thinking to play here. He might play OI. The problem is he has to do something that's going to create a lane to the left of Jairai. It's the only spot he could create a new lane, and like we said, he's going to need that 50-point bonus from a bingo in order to come back. And so there's only really two spots he could play it. Through that E at the bottom of the board, or if he creates himself a second lane here to play to the left. The problem is, if he does so, Jackson's going to hit that lane to the left for a lot of points, and then even if Noah bingos through the E, that bingo is only going to score about 60 points, and it's not going to be enough to catch up. So his options here are not appealing. Is there something he can set up where only he would have the front hook? Because he has the blank, if he could set up something through Jairai, perhaps if he has the only hook to that lane, it might be his best chance. There is the word agio through that G, but there's no front hook to that. Is anyone thinking of a possible sequence here for Noah that he could do to create a second lane? I'm really not seeing it. Looking back at the chat, I see Kicking mentioned that he or she knows most of the twos or threes, but tight boards, yeah, the tighter the board, the more you really have to know the words because each spot becomes that much more critical. Okay, Noah's going to play Raggy. Like I said, he had to open up a new lane. The problem with that is he's leaving OOI, and the lane that's probably going to be left for him is an E, and that's another vowel. So I don't know what he was supposed to do, so it's hard for me to say that was the wrong play, but I don't think it's going to be enough. So he has two O's, two I's, a T, an R, and a blank. Is there a bingo with the E there? The R is almost certainly going to be taken. There are now 12 unseen tiles from Jackson's perspective, meaning 7 of them are on Noah's rack and 5 of them are in the bag. I'm going to place the pool from Jackson's perspective into the chat window. So Jackson is seeing that the blank is out, and there are potential bingos probably in either lane. What he's doing is seeing which bingos Noah could potentially have. With 5 in the bag, he's going to want to play 4 tiles if he can, which is probably something right there. Is he going to drop the S? No. Where is going to be enough, even if Noah were to bingo. It's not going to be enough to catch up, because Jackson's leaving so strong and he's going to be able to score. And like we said, if Noah were to bingo through that E, it's just not going to be able to score anything. But because he has so many vowels, and remember he left 3 vowels last turn, sort of out of necessity, we didn't see a play he could have made. Maybe air, A-I-R to the R in gyri. But either way, he was in a tough position. Ova next to Jet. It would have got rid of vowels, but the problem for Noah was that he really needed to create a second lane, because if he didn't create a second bingo lane, he had no chance to score enough to get back into the game. He's going to dump off the OI here, empty the bag. Both players are going to know what the opponent has. Oh, Noah only has 6 tiles, so he has conceded with that play of OI. I think that was pretty fair. You don't want to see someone concede, but there just wasn't a route to victory that at least I could see, and considering how good Noah is at this game, I think it's pretty fair to say there was just nothing available for him to do. This is gonna see Noah drop to 0-5. Jackson will be 2 games away from victory, but Noah fell down 6-2 at the start of the tournament and has worked his way back to being a finalist, so you'd be remiss to count him out. We have a lot of Scrabble here to come as Noah goes out with another weird word, peridot. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Let's get a definition, and let's congratulate Jackson for going up 5-0 with a win here, 431 to 362. So peridot or peridot, however it's pronounced, being French, I assume it's pronounced peridot. It's a gemstone and green in color. So Josh, you can see him in the back of the stream there. He's going to go talk to the 2 players as they look up words in their phone. I wonder if they're going to be talking about that Doniker moniker mistake. Yeah. Bonehead can smell trouble for Noah, as we all can. He's dropped now to 2-11 in the set versus Jackson. That's just hard to fathom, but it does happen, and we haven't really seen Noah make too many mistakes. Sometimes Scrabble can just be brutal like that. I remember once losing 9 straight to Hasty Bot, which is the top engine on Woogles, and then later in that set winning 8 straight. So anything can really happen in this. Don't count anyone out until it's over. I'm going to add a note into Quackle about what happened on this moniker's turn, just so people observing the game later when I update it to cross tables will understand what happened. Where is the notes tab? Do I have to save it first? I've used this program for so many years and yet I still seem to be struggling. This is game 5 finals, Jackson, Noah. I'll save it like that. There is a way to make the notes, and Jackson was the one to teach me how to do this because, oh, there it is, okay. Jackson taught me a lot about what I know about Scrabble. I really appreciate how much he just wanted me to improve. A lot of people, because it's a competitive game, and being in the same city, when he used to live in Toronto, we would be playing a lot of tournaments against each other. And instead of worrying about making one of his opponents better, all he wanted to do was help me improve. All he wanted was for everyone to get more into Scrabble and love the game as much as he did. And I'm so appreciative of that. And I wish he hadn't moved to Montreal, but at least now when I go to Montreal, I have more friends to visit. And anyone who's been to Montreal knows how it's such a fun city, unlike anywhere else in Canada, and unlike any other city I've been to, so I really recommend it. Give me 1 second as I just add this note to the Quackle game. I'm adding the note right now, and then I can send it to you. Okay. So I will just email that to you then. Or I'll put it through Discord. Okay, so that's been sent to Josh on Discord. He will take care of... Oh, Messenger, please. Can you take it from Discord and put it to Messenger, or I can resend it later, or whatever you want? Okay, Josh will handle that. The players are clearing the tiles off the board and getting ready to go into game 6. Jackson's going to be first in this one. So not only is he up 5-0, but he has the advantage of going first, which is about a 5 to 10 point advantage. I think the player who goes first typically wins about 55% of the time. So it's not the biggest edge, but like playing the white tiles in chess, it's definitely an edge. And unlike in chess, where certain players might prefer playing the black tiles, I think everybody in Scrabble wants to go first. You are more likely to have one more turn than your opponent, and I don't see any reason why you'd want to go second. Thank you for joining us on this holiday Monday. I hope everyone's having as much fun as we are. Jackson is drawing his first rack. And he's drawn 4 vowels. And he's going to play the word folia quite quickly. I know it takes an R hook. Does it take the S? Is that a plural? Yeah, the R is the only hook. That is what I would have guessed. So let's put the definition into the chat. A leaf, a thin layer. So it's related to foliage. Noah's tiles almost spell out the planet Jupiter. You never seem to be looking over in the set and seeing Noah just sitting on something great. The J-U-I-I combination does not form a lot of words, and he's gonna have to break up some of those tiles. Probably just jilt, yeah. We've already made a mistake entering these tiles by not making Jackson's first play vertical. Let's fix that. And Jackson is not looking at a good rack. 3 ends. I guess he could play hind or hint, parallel to folia. That would be my first thought. It does get rid of 3 consonants. He could play in, I-N-N, if he just wants to break up the overabundance of ends, but it scores a lot fewer. I don't really see what else he could be considering. Let's see if Quackle sees anything else. Um, Adam, in Canada, the holiday is Thanksgiving. We celebrated it a month earlier than you guys. In the States, is it Columbus Day maybe? Oh, Hant is another option that Quackle has found that I didn't consider. But well, he's just going to play Nan, so that's another way to drop off both ends. In would have scored a lot more, but Nan does partially take out that S hook from Jilts, or at least takes out a lot of the strength of it. So I think Jackson's looking to play a bit of defense. Oh, Indigenous Peoples Day. Perhaps it used to be called Columbus Day, but there's definitely some controversies there. Here in Canada, it is a day off work. I don't know if you guys are working in the States, but I see we have 34 people in the chat, so a lot of people are able to join us for Scrabble in the middle of the afternoon. Noah, as I'm talking, quickly plays, I believe, a French word of Poilou. Yeah, that was a soldier from World War One. And Jackson has the bingo of unheated, and that's going to come down instantly. Once again, Jackson is the first one to get a bingo down, and Noah continues to draw poorly. WUG combination with two T's. I don't know why Noah can't seem to draw better than this. It's just how Scrabble goes sometimes. Such a streaky game. He must be frustrated, but he continues to look calm at the table. He knows at any point the tiles can swing, even with a bad rack. All you can do is just make the best play on every single turn. You don't want to think any further than that. Just every turn, make the best possible play you can, and that's all you can really do. We can see Jackson drew 6 consonants. He did draw the S though. Noah's options are really unappealing. He would love to get rid of the W. He would love to get rid of the UG, although the U is his only vowel. Rugal is Quackle's top equity play, forming foliar. I think Noah will know that hook that I mentioned earlier. Pignut, that's another fun play. I wonder if we'll see that. So that's between a couple disconnected tiles, the PI of pi, the math term, and the N of nan. And he exchanged. Okay. Don't know if I would have exchanged here, but I definitely support the decision. He was in such a tough spot, and he really wants to be getting to a bingo soon, and he's drawn into drastic if it'll play anywhere, so his decision to exchange could pay off quite quickly. Jackson has a normal looking rack with Norm. And let's see where Norm might play. I don't see where Norm would play unless he were to add the S. We see Adam saying how he gets screwed psychologically if he loses a lot of games, and I think most players do. It's really easy to get on tilt. Noah could have easily gotten on tilt after round 1, falling 6 games to 2, but instead he managed to... Oh, enorm, that makes a lot of sense. So I didn't consider that. That's just a short form of the word enormous. I'm a bit surprised it's considered a word, but Scrabble will accept it. And Noah doesn't have a spot for drastic, but he does have 8s, and he finds one instantly. Distract, that looks like his highest scoring one. There was also carotids, the carotid artery, and Quackle also find acridus, the most acrid. So those are bingos that top level players will see right away, being such high probability. These are the words people tend to review. And look at that, Jackson, as he's done so often, has drawn another blank. And he's going to be looking through that O of enorm, through that I of distract. It certainly looks promising. Crackle is telling me there is no bingo, so we might see Jackson use a bit more clock as he just confirms it. Once again, we saw when Noah had a bingo, he was confident quite quickly that he had found all of them and thus knowing which one was the best one. Whereas Jackson might have to take a bit more time to be sure he's not missing something. Missing the bingo would be very costly here. Although either way, he's in a good position because he has a slight lead. It's his turn and he has the blank. So once again, things are looking good for Jackson, but we're not even halfway into this game, so there's still a lot of Scrabble to be played. So Poilu takes an S, being a noun again, and so he could just play something like Verls if he wanted to be really aggressive. He does have the blank, so he might want to open that triple lane. That is a play I'd be considering. He might just drop the V and the G. He could do that by playing Vig or by playing Vog. Those are the three-letter words that I was saying were so important, and when you play enough, they sort of become second nature. And he will play Vig. That opens a new lane beneath Vig, so he's likely to get a bingo down, either through beneath Vig or through any of the tiles of Enorm. And Noah will be happy to see that comes down because he's able to play a very obscure and very high scoring play of Yae. Oops, I have to confirm Vig, and I've messed up. Let's try this again. Okay, and now Noah had Yae MP, I think? M-O? Sorry, I'm having a bit of a hard time keeping up with this tracking. We want to thank, we had a follower pop up on the screen. I missed who it was. Welcome to the chat. Let us know how long you've been playing Scrabble, if you have any questions about what's going on. Yeah, Yahi is really obscure, but it was a key word for pertaining to the disease yaws. So, I don't know. Some of these words are crazy, and then you see a lot of people wanting to switch to the International Dictionary that has another 30% or more of these archaic words, foreign words, dated words, obscure words. To me, it doesn't interest me. I love playing in this North American dictionary that already has too many words. People aren't in favor of culling words because they find it very confusing to unlearn words, but it doesn't appeal to me to go the direction that many other top players are. So let's enjoy this NWL competition between some of the best NWL players in the world. I think the NWL game really leads to a lot of strategy with close boards, tight positions, and it's more reflective of the true spirit of the game, which is putting out words that we are more familiar with. I'm just refreshing my page because it's gone blurry again. And by doing that, unfortunately, I lost all the chat comments, and I couldn't see Jackson's last tile, but it was an S, and that means he has a bingo with poitrels, another odd word. Singularly, it would be an anagram of politer, but Jackson will take the lead here. So, by my math, the score becomes 215 to 160. Sorry if the chat got deleted. Josh cleared it for some reason. It wasn't me refreshing the page, although I did have to refresh my page. So if someone had just written a comment and feels like they were ignored, just please rewrite it and we'll get to you. You can see how many people are active in this chat. People love helping people who are newer to Scrabble. Noah's going to play off the word modi, leaving RIT, which are pretty good bingo tiles. He could have also played yurd down to the triple, but I think he thought if he did so, Jackson could have closed things a bit easier. Midst would have been another play, a common word, MIDST, but by doing that, he would have opened up the triple lane beneath, and I don't think he wanted to for not that many points. Jackson, we can see 6 of his tiles. 3 of them are the word Zen, which for some reason, even though we have so many weird words in the Scrabble dictionary, for a long time Zen was not allowed. I guess they thought perhaps it was capitalized, but a Zen state is definitely a word. Okay, the K, we knew he had that. Zek is a less common word, but in Scrabble it's a very common word. It scores well, it dumps a couple clunky tiles. He could play Zek forming Yok, or Yoke, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but that would really be volatile. There could be a big potential for underlaps, but it does score so many. Now it looks like he's considering Zen in the same spot. Yon would take the I back hook and for Yoni, and we do see that I on Noah's rack. Now as Jackson continues to play with his tiles, and we see his 7th tile being the A, and I think he's now considering Vina in the same spot. It would be a lot more defensive with that V stopping underlaps, because you can't hook a letter before or after V to form a 2-letter word. With his lead, he's able to play defense here. He might be worried about bingos down from the M. Definitely a possibility. Oh, a comment about Yahweh. Is that just a different way to say Jesus, I believe? Like Yeshua, Yahweh. Yeah, I'm glad I could help you, Kicking. Yawn can also take a D for yawned, like yonder. Yeah, those are the only 2 hooks. I'm glad I know my 3-letter hooks. Yawned would not take an S, and yawn doesn't take an S. So a lot of people might try and put an S onto yawn, but that would get challenged off very quickly in this game. Here's the definition for yawn. Perhaps it'll help us understand why it doesn't take an S. Oh, because it also means like yonder. Okay. So he goes with Zek. That's the highest scoring option. Very volatile. No, it does have the E, but I don't think he's going to be able to score enough as much as he potentially could if he had a different rack. I guess you could say about any turn, but my point is when you see such a juicy spot, you want to hit it a lot harder than Noah's going to be able to hit it for. Jackson just hit that spot for 51, and so Noah's going to want to hit the spot for at least as many points to feel like he did well in this little 2-turn exchange, but because he has to start the word with the E, because he doesn't have a hook beneath eam, he's relegated to points that only score 39 points. No, eamer is not good. You could put a U or an S after eam. And if he's to start a word with an E, it looks like his options are just et, or L, so just 2-letter words. Which is a bit surprising. You would think there would be, with such an easily balanced rack, he's got 3 vowels, 4 consonants, only 1 tile's worth more than 1 point. These are common letters, and yet he just, yeah, it's got to be L. There's nothing else to really play there. He's leaving orbit as a leave, and the problem is the board's quite close. If Jackson's now going to probably look to do something to either score or close the right side of the board. Should bingo's down to the R of a norm, and through or down to or from the M in a norm would be the big bingo lanes. And Noah's down, not quite a bingo, but he's down over 40 points, 43 points plus a turn. And that puts him in a very difficult position. He now has drawn into bingo looking racks, but will there be a lane for him to play one? You've got to imagine Jackson's first and only thought here is anything to block. Var would do it. He could play, oh, he found Varna, even better. Another weird word. So once again, for our players who aren't familiar with these words, it can be a bit intimidating, but remember, these are the very best players in the world. It's like watching Magnus Carlsen in chess. He's going to be considering things that go beyond our measly minds, but I hope by helping you with the basic strategy, you'll be able to apply it to the words you do know. You don't need to know all these obscure words to play well. I've been playing on Woogles.io on the Common Lexicon Dictionary, and those are just words that are commonly spoken, and I've still been averaging about 26 points a turn against the bot, so it's very possible to continue to score and play very well just by knowing good strategy and understanding the basics of Scrabble. In this position, for Noah, he needs to open up lanes. The problem is every time he tries to open a lane, all Jackson has to do is try and close it. The V, the J, the P, the F, and that other V, they've really closed a lot of this board. If he had an A to form day between the D of distract and the Y of yacht, he could look to open up a word that perhaps he only had the S front hook to, but that's not going to work here. He does have the R to form dry. He play... Okay, so he's going to play boards, which is reasonable. It scores a lot, it opens things up, but if Jackson can do something to clog that portion of the board, he's going to be able to really command things here. Yeah, we are all out of board license plates. Good advice from Josh, axcertypo. This is his channel, and he's pointed out how Woogles.io, which is the site we love to play on, has computer engines that will only play common words against you. So you don't have to worry about all these weird words. You can just really focus on leaving good tiles that'll allow you to play longer words, and scoring when you have the high point tiles, and bingoing when you have a lot of the 1-point tiles. Glad to see a Simpsons reference in the chat. I hope we'll get more in. I think I can quote the Simpsons pretty well. And so how is Jackson going to look to block? It looks like he's setting up O-W-E, which would parallel next to the first 3 letters of Bort's, and it would mean that Noah would have to play through B-O, body odor, or O-W, ow, R-E, re. And it's a lot harder to play through 2 tiles. It means you'd have to form a 9-letter word if you want a bingo. But the one good thing for Noah is at least he'd still have a potential to play something there, and then he could look to open up that second lane, that key second lane we were saying. When you're behind, you need a couple spots to be able to score because your opponent's going to be blocking one of them. And you see it right now as Jackson will actually score pretty well for just a blocking play. That's 25 points. It'll extend his lead. Noah has not drawn well. He does have that blank, but he's got 4 vowels. Make it 5 vowels. Counting can be hard. So if I were Noah, I'd be looking to open up some sort of lane to the bottom left. Quidjabo. I think that was a big ape of some sort in The Simpsons. A very early episode of The Simpsons when they played Scrabble. There was a lot of Homer choking Bart, and I think he ran through a vat of turpentine or something. So Noah might just play OE beneath the Y of Ya'i. That would allow him to play a bingo on the next turn there if Jackson leaves the spot open. He might be thinking about faking a setup like that, but really trying to fish for something through that BO. If he could hit both triple word scores, it would be times 9. So even if he weren't to use all 7 of his tiles, he could hit that lane with just 6. but still by multiplying his play by 9, it could be a lot to really help him here. But these are some pretty desperate measures. Okay, he's going to take points. So he's going to play OE, but he's going to play it up there. And, you know, he could now end words with boot. Perhaps that's a consideration. Jackson has the B for boob. I don't know if he has a second tile to, like what his seventh tile is for hooking downwards, although O is only going to take a D or an S. O-word is not a word, despite ER words coming up quite common in the dictionary. He's picked up his T. Still don't know what that seventh tile is. It's a D. Okay. So now that we know his tile, we can start to really... Yeah, he could play Boon. He might just want to kill that triple lane. It's still the only lane, which, yeah, lets him kill it quite easily. That's why I really wanted to see Noah play on the left side of the board. Because unless I'm missing a lane, I don't know... Like, Noah's tried to balance his rack, and he does have a bingo-looking rack, but he has nowhere to play it. So if he had played OE with Yi, then Jackson would have either had to block there, or at least Noah could have been trying to find some obscure play through the BO. Maybe I'm giving too much credence to that very hard to hit lane. But when you're behind by this much, you sort of have to take these desperate measures. He could look to open up by playing a word through that V, but I think Jackson won't have a hard time blocking there. Maybe above the L or above the PI of Poilu, but is there an extension we can consider, like before distract or before boob? Boob also feels like a Simpson word, like a Simpson sort of insult. Curio J-O. Oh, that's a nice idea. The C out in space is really hard, really good when you're trying to set up lanes because it can't be underlapped. Jackson could look to block above or below or beneath the UR of Curio, but it is something. It's definitely the best idea I've seen so far. Yeah, Europi. It could let him. The problem is the E will get taken and the R won't allow for a bingo. So it's a good idea. If it was one slot lower, it would be, or one slot to the right, but there, I don't see how it's going to help him. Yeah, side boob should be there. That feels like another Simpsons reference, or maybe Family Guy or something. Welcome Malachi Holden and the man from Acme joining our Simpsons conversation. I feel like Noah must be feeling like he wants to say dope. We don't allow that word because it has an apostrophe, but DOH is one of the tones of the musical scale, do, re, mi. So DOH is acceptable and does take the S, the different tones being nouns. I keep saying how nouns take an S. If a word was an adjective, it wouldn't normally be pluralized with an S because it's describing something. Whereas a noun is an object, a person, place, or thing, so those typically get pluralized with an S. So often, even though these top-level players won't know what a word necessarily means, they will have a good idea what part of speech it is, with adjectives and interjections often not taking pluralization, a verb often taking an ed and an ing ending, and it gets a lot more complicated than that, but that's a pretty good basic overview. Yeah, Jackson also is thinking in a Springfield sort of way. Mnemonic, yeah. So what Josh is sort of suggesting here is that you're in such a bad position. You have to start looking at individual plays you could hit. And mnemonic is just a beautiful idea. This is where players like Josh and Jackson and Noah really set themselves apart from the crop. Um, Looking for, like, to me, that lane looks dead, but Josh took the time to realize that MN could lead to mnemonic. Uh, just a brilliant idea. He's not fishing for that. He's using that C in the same way that we sort of discussed, where it's hard to overlap, and he's left an I. A lot of words do end in IC, even URIC, so there's a lot of good things to think about with that play from Noah. He's not giving up. Jackson has tax plus UNI. I'm not sure what his last tile was, once again, but he's just going to play tax. Oh, the blank would have to be that other end. That would make it a lot harder to hit. So Noah really wanted a word, I think, ending in an IC, but he's continued to draw too many vowels. That's been a theme here today for him, unfortunately. Yeah, the UN combo is nice. When Jackson's ahead, he's less thinking of words he needs to form. He just um, tax. The other thing with tax or nix is they can both be extended down to the triple score. Um, in this game situation, both players are really worried about bingos, being worried about Noah hitting one, Noah trying to hit one, and Jackson hoping Noah doesn't. But definitely a lot to consider. Even between such small plays that look so similar, like tax and nix, you really have to go through all the different reasons as to why one could be better than the other. Here you're going to see Noah realizing he's just got to do something. He throws down 3 of those vowels. He has 5. Hangs the R in space. He might get hit hard there, but when you're down like this, you got to make something happen. Jackson has FEINU. We don't know what his last 2 tiles are. Noah has drawn a more balanced leave, but I think his only lane will be down to the C. Jackson will for sure play something obscuring that R. And okay, so yeah, Jackson was thinking extensions, as Josh points out. It's hard to be considering both players' possibilities as you're trying to keep the commentary and Quackle going, but Taxied is the sort of play he could hit. And he has, I think, but he, again, has to block the R because Noah hung it, so Frog looks to be like the play that he wants to make. I see 6 of Jackson's 7 tiles. Kicking feels like that R is desperate, but you have to understand Noah is down now 62 points and a turn being it's Jackson's turn, so he'll get to score before Noah does. And he's in desperate situations. There's no real way to open up that whole top left portion of the board, and he needs space in order to hit a bingo to get that 50-point multiplier to even give him a chance. His winning percentages on that roux turn have to be minuscule, especially against a player of Jackson's quality. Frog comes down. Jackson's taken some time to think this through, but it seems pretty clearly strong enough. I don't know what his last tile was, but I can't imagine that was the wrong play. Noah would beat most people 999 times out of 1,000, including some of the very best players in the world. Yeah, Josh and Sid didn't like Rue, but what is he supposed to be doing there? Again, I've been talking instead of looking for plays too much, so I could have missed something, but I just don't see what he was supposed to have done there. I think it comes down to a previous turn, as it often does, where he played OE parallel to O instead of beneath the Y and Yai. I think if he had played that, he might have been able to create something, but I think once he played that OE next to O, and I don't like to criticize him because I think he's a stronger player than me, and he might have had his reasons, but I think that was his last chance on this specific board to be able to keep two lanes alive. Even if Jackson had blocked that lane he was going to create with OE, by blocking he might have given something back, and if not, he would have had desperate hopes through that BO, which is really hard to hit. Um, so I think he either had to be thinking like that or fishing for very specific plays like mnemonic, like Josh pointed out. But his chances were low. No matter what he was going to do, he was in serious trouble. And unfortunately, it looks like he's going to drop 6-0, and it would mean he would need 7 straight wins to pull off this championship. You can't put anything past a player of Noah's quality. He could win 7 straight against Jackson. I know in my first tournament of the year, I haven't played any official tournaments, but I played a few online ones. My first tournament, I went 0-5 with a spread of -7 something. I just lost all 5 games badly, and then my next tournament, I managed to win the hockey tournament hosted on Woogles by going, I think, 11-2. So things can change very quickly. That Duke play through 3 disconnected tiles. Just stunning play. It's not going to be enough to get him to win the game, but you gotta take off your hat for finding that. That is just not something people would even consider. Um, and yeah, so Jackson kept taxied as Josh had, or kept ID to hit taxied as Josh pointed out. So the difference between Nix and tax really shows up there. He thought it through and it paid off. Spread doesn't really matter here, but why not still make the best play possible every turn? And Noah has drawn the cue. Is this the third time this game he's drawn the cue? Like, feels like he keeps drawing it, throwing it back, and it comes back. Were there any front extensions to boob? I'm sure we could come up with some vulgar ones, but at this point, Noah realizes his winning chances are 0, and they've been 0 for a few turns now, perhaps just over 0 to reflect the possibility of an error or something miraculous happening, but it is over now. Jackson has 4 tiles. Hopefully Josh will remind him to keep them a bit more centered in previous games. We can't see his 4th tile, but Quackle is telling me it's an S. So he has HANS, Hans, and it'll go somewhere. Maybe not an out in 1, but I guess Gnash from the G in Frog. So like to gnash your teeth. Noah's circled something on the blank slip, so he will be playing the blank here along with the Q. Choir, he should be playing Require. Oh no, Folia's blocking that, excuse me. So if I've been tracking everything right here, Jackson will have the out of Nash. He can do some math to see if it's better to not go out in 1 and maybe play Ha, forming Chi and Add, and saving NS, and see if his 2-turn route would score more than his 1-turn route. I don't know if he wants to spend all that brain power here, but he has lines up pass, so he's at least thinking it. And I don't feel like doing the math. I'm pretty tired myself, not as tired as Will was this morning, but all he'd be doing here is he would add up Ha, then he would find Noah's best play, figure out how much that scores. I don't think Noah can go out on this tight board. Jackson will also have figured out by now where his N and S can go, for example, forming A's and L's. So he might even have 2 spots to go out. So by playing slowly here, it's probably the better idea from a math perspective, but the spread really doesn't matter. So unless, I guess, they were to tie 6.5 all, but that doesn't seem likely. I would also take Nash and get out of there kicking. And do read Word Freak. It might make you think the players are a lot stranger than perhaps they are. There are definitely some strange players in Scrabble, as there are in any aspect or any group of people, but there are also a lot of very well-adjusted people. I think all four players in this tournament and all the streamers have really done a good job to represent all the best aspects of Scrabble. And to spread matter, it can zero radio. It ended up mattering in Jackson and Josh's set when there was a tie. Um, and so, but in this, the winner is going to be probably the first one to 7 wins. Um, Wanting to solve all endgames is important. It's something I wish I would force myself to do more. I think players like Jackson and Noah and Josh are some of the best endgame players in the world with creativity that really goes leaps and bounds beyond other players. Oh, he did. Oh no, he doesn't have an out. He's still holding on to the G. I know Sid was really telling me before the tournament he's been working hard on his endgames. He never thought of himself as one of the very top endgame players, but he's been really trying to work them through, and he says he's still making a lot of mistakes, but he's found the amount of value he loses on his endgame routes has been really decreasing, and it's practice like anything else. If you go to Kenji's website, breakingthegame.com, I want to say, I could have that wrong, he has some endgame puzzles you can work through. They're pretty complex, but they are great practice. And there's that Ains out I discussed. And look at that, Jackson is up 6 games to nothing. And to use a tennis term, this would be a match point, I guess, or match game to take the tennis term and sort of apply it to Scrabble. He's 1 game away from clinching. Noah cannot afford to lose any more games or this will be over and the money will be Jackson's. It's .net. Thank you, Kicking. Let's put a link for Kenji. Maybe there's even a Kenji command. No. Breakingthegame.net. Click that and I'll click it just to make sure it is the right link. No. Maybe Josh knows the proper site, or he has a command of some sort. What if I shout out strategy? That'll probably lead to site. There you go. Or you could put the command breakingthegame.net. Oh, I guess I had the proper thing. It's, I guess, because I didn't put www. Normally these days you don't have to put the front of the URL, but when I tried to click it, it didn't lead me to the site. Kenji is also a streamer. His name on here is Strategy. I haven't seen him this afternoon, but if the stream today goes long enough, he will be taking over for me and commentating the end of the action.
Right.
Noah continues to look very calm. I haven't seen him get rattled yet. I like to think this is the game where the tiles are going to finally go his way. But Scrabble is so unpredictable, we don't know what's going to happen. I believe Noah will be going first in this game, so at least he has that advantage. I'll enter the pass for Jackson for proper scorekeeping here on Quackle. Quackle is a program that we can use to run simulations. It's the most advanced program we have at the moment, as they are working on more. By a simulation, I mean the computer will look at a position and you can enter different potential plays and it'll play the game over and over and over and over again until it creates a value of how much it thinks certain plays are worth. And by following what the computer engine thinks, we've really been able to up the strategy for human players. One thing to consider, if you're new to Scrabble and you don't know all the words, Quackle will be assuming as it plays through the sequences that you're going to be finding all the words it would be finding. So strategy for lower level players aren't going to match the strategy that the simulations will be suggesting, but I do think it's a good starting point. And if you have more questions on how that would differ, come by Woogles.io, continue to watch Josh's stream, ask questions, get involved, play with high-rated players, um, and set goals for yourself. But you always want to be competing against yourself more than anything else. The one thing I love most of all in Scrabble is that even though I've been playing for so many years, I feel like I've been getting better the entire time. I never felt like I've plateaued. I never felt like I've peaked. I never felt like I've gotten worse. I feel like just by the more you play, the more you learn, the more words you learn, the more strategy you talk with people, I just think it's a game where you can always be growing because there's just so many words, there's so much strategy. During this past year, I've played a lot of chess, and I have learned a lot in that sense. And there's so much more to learn with chess. You can start memorizing openings and learning all of this cool strategy and positioning and this and that. But one thing with chess is a bunch of games seem to follow a pretty similar pattern. They might look similar to me, and I'm sure at a high level they're actually not. But in Scrabble, because there's just so many different words, you don't see the same pawn, then knight, then bishop move. Like the first word changes everything. And Churo's agreeing with me, and I definitely think what I'm saying is true. It's just every game is different, and every word changes, has so many possibilities. I know it can be intimidating looking at all these weird words, but honestly, when you start playing, you're not going to be playing against players like this. You'll be playing against players more at your level, or the beginner bots that Josh was recommending. And there's just so much to learn from a very basic perspective. On every turn, you want to be balancing what you can score while also keeping good tiles that will allow you to score well in future turns. And you want to be thinking about when to block the board, when to open the board. In a general rule, you want to open when you're behind, block when you're ahead, but it's more than that. It ends up going into terms like variance. When you're ahead, you want there to be lower variance. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm getting this backwards. You basically, when you're ahead, you want one scoring spot for you and one for your opponent. And when you're behind, you want to open up specific lanes, typically bingo lanes, in order to catch up. A lot of this ends up becoming intuitive. It can sound complicated, but that's why you're here, to listen, to watch this fun action, and hopefully I'll say things that resonate. Noah has the tile bag. The money was just flashed on the board. If that's not an incentive, I don't know what it is. You see Jackson starting to tap a bit. Probably a touch of nervous energy as he imagines what he could do with that money. There is quite a lot, I'm sure. It's a lot of money. It's US dollars. He lives in Canada, so the money will go even further. It's a $1,200 pool, but each player entered 300 US. Noah has drawn the cube because of course he has. He will have a word here, the word key, spelled quay, but I believe it's pronounced key, like the Queen's Quay, a street in Toronto. And that comes down quickly because there's nothing else to consider. When you have the queue, you just want to get rid of it, typically as soon as you can. That scores well, and it's really his only option on that turn. Jackson has a more balanced rack, having 3 vowels, and he has the CH combination, which goes together nicely, and the WH, which the W is not a great tile, but it could be worse on different racks. He has how lined up right away, which he could play above or beneath key. Oh, I don't think he's seen the word Juan, another very strange word with a very strange letter pattern. That would be the best play here, if he could find it. It scores 35, and it underlaps 3 of those 4 tiles, and leaves eco, which, yeah, oh, no, he found how. Okay, oh, how plays in a much better spot than I saw it, but he did miss this word, and it's a monetary unit of South Korea. Now, how is more defensive? It doesn't hang a tile that would allow Noah to hook and hit those double word scores, but I think if he had seen Walton, he would have played it. Noah has Woo Gift on his rack, and he will play Woof, which looks reasonable, although we didn't quite have time to look at it. The action is moving fast. Noah's the fastest player in this tournament. Jackson has 2 N's, Winced plus 1 more N. Welcome back, Joey, who did commentary on 2 different days, did a great job. Hope you enjoyed the NFL action yesterday. Especially that great Sunday night win by the Bills over the Chiefs. We're hoping not for a sweep. We're hoping Noah's going to take this game and extend the set, but he's going to be wincing after getting hit for 37 points. And he still can't seem to draw into anything too exciting. But down from the C, he could play Siggy, which is like a nice conversational way of saying cigarette. So you gotta love the lines the way that Dan Campbell was crying in that post-game conference. They lost another. I didn't see it. I was at a Thanksgiving brunch that my friends hosted, but it was another classic loss. So he sees Siggy. Noah would be the last person I can imagine ever smoking, but he does know that word, and he gets it down. Jackson is close to bingos with different floaters. He would have a word like retirant, which is just a different way to say retiree. Does he have anything through the G? ING you'd be looking at. Remember your prefixes and suffixes, RE at the front, ER at the end, IER. It looks like he has one too many consonant to be able to form a bingo here. If you could get rid of one of those T's or R's, and ideally both, because you don't want the duplicates, he'd be in a much better position. No, I think the Lions are doing a great rebuild. They got a terrible roster on paper, but their coach has them playing hard every week, and this won't be their year, that's for sure. But going forward with that offensive line and that head coach, I think for once they might have found the right keys to a rebuild, but you never know. Josh is trying to get people to bet on the game. We'll stop talking football. We will talk Scrabble. Jackson has the RIT, perhaps thinking of playing Frit. That would be reasonable. Whatever he does here, he's probably going to play off... Oh, now he's thinking Reading, playing long, playing off 6 tiles. I think I'd be more inclined to play off 3 tiles and leave a nice balanced 4-tile lead that I could hopefully bingo on the following turn. That's not to say Reading is wrong. It's just not what I would be leaning towards. After Noah's play of Siggy, it's hard to really get a range on him because that scores so nicely and dumps such ugly tiles that he could have had a lot of different things that he kept as his 3-tile leave. I didn't see any of the game, and I didn't even really see much of the highlights. I was out most of the day yesterday, but I did watch the night game. My brother-in-law is a huge Bills fan, and over the past few years I've been watching a ton of the Bills. Toronto is close to Buffalo, only 2.5 hours, so there's a lot of Bills fans here, and the Bills look great. Watch out for the Bills-Rams Super Bowl. That is my pick right now. And he is going to play Reading. Okay. That could blow up in his face if the 6 tiles he draw aren't balanced. Noah has the F for fretting, and Jackson might be fretting if Noah plays something like deft and fretted. So I'm not loving that play by Jackson. Perhaps this is the swing that Noah needs to turn this set around, but Jackson's smiling. He drew that blank, so by playing long, one of the reasons people like to play long is well, I'm counting the border, Joey, is it lets people get blanks. If you turn over 6 tiles, you can really, okay, he can play defeat. That's even better. Look at that. Noah very quickly finds a play with 5 underlaps. That's beautiful. And 5 underlaps, maybe Noah will be able to draw the other blank. But also he could draw into a lot of difficult tiles. Yeah, that is a nice play. It's a common word, which we love to see, especially for you players who aren't familiar with some of these weird ones. And it scores a lot. It'll give him a nice lead here. 39 plus 15. He's up 54 points by my poor math. So that puts him up almost to bingo. It is Jackson's turn, so let's say maybe he's up about 3/4 of a bingo. Jackson will want to dump one of his duplicate R's. Other than that, he's quite close to a bingo. He could even just dump an R to play ref. He'd have to permutate how often he would bingo after that. I think it would be a fairly high percentage. So that's a consideration. An E or an O, he could hit heroines. With an A, he'd have many bingos as well. Tarnish or whatever. And with a lot of the consonants, I think he might even draw a bingo. And there comes the one-tile fish. It's always nice when you can predict when a top player like Jackson's doing. It means your strategy perhaps is not too far off. Here I expect gallop to come down above winced. Gallop we would normally spell with 2 L's, but the dictionary does allow it with 1. The thing with Noah's thoughts here is that Jackson just played 1, so Noah knows that Jackson's close to a bingo and that he probably has an S. But there's just no other play to really consider here. He's got to play gallop. He's got to hope to find one of those S's or blanks himself. But Jackson will be bingoing. Rushing would be a very common word. Nourish, yeah, that's another nice find by Kicking, who has been downplaying his own or her own abilities, but yet found a word like nourish that doesn't have a very common letter pattern, so that's a nice find. Rushing will allow to go through woof and still hit the double word score and keep things sort of towards the bottom of the board. It could be hooked at the front with brushing or crushing, something like that, but that's not a huge consideration here. Noah is now up about a full bingo, but that bingo is going to come sooner than later. And Noah has hit some high-scoring tiles. Yeah, Furnish, another nice find from Malachi. We see lots of players in the chat who can unscramble from here. Kicking was thinking that it was surprising there wasn't a bingo with RRINHS blank, but one thing to consider is that there was just that one vowel and the duplicate R's, so that's what really made it hard to bingo on that turn. So there's the rushing play that I had seen right away and expected something like that to come down. Noah has the B for brushing, but I think he's going to want to do better than that if he can. Jackson goes up 6, but it's Noah's turn. Prob through the R, a short way of saying probably. Right now, he's probably noticing that above the A in gallop, his Z would fit nicely. Right now, he doesn't have the tiles to hook it in either direction, but he might want to hang on to that Z and hope that he perhaps draws an E and then he could play Z, Z-E-D, D-O-W, E-L, and Z-A, and that would score about 50 plus, probably mid to low 50s on that play. And so often if you can't hit a spot big on the first turn, what you want to do is hold the tile, and there are a lot of E's in the bag, looks like about 8 of them. So prop comes down, and it will, if he draws that E, he could be in a position next turn, assuming Jackson doesn't play there. Looking over to Jackson's rack, he's got non-beer. And Jackson likes beer, so he might not like this rack. Another reason he might not like this rack is that it's got duplicate ends. It's not going to bingo. Oh, kicking was a crossworder. I love crosswords. I wish I were better at them. I can solve the Toronto Star one pretty well, but that's our local paper. But if I try and go to a harder one like the New York Times, I get stumped quite often. Spelling bee, if the words were 8 letters or shorter, I think I do pretty well. If they were longer, I would do well compared to the average person, but not compared to a player like Noah. There was a spelling bee that Scrabblers hosted earlier in the pandemic, and who remembers who won that? I wish I could shout out the winner. It was Wolfram, maybe? Does that sound right to people? Yeah, Josh is also thinking Wolfram. Okay, Ben comes down. That's a name. It's also a word. It forms O and pin, much more common words. And look at that. We might have a game after all. So he didn't need to hit ZED, which he did, because he can hit zinged. And zinged is going to play for even more points. Leaving TV, and who doesn't love to leave the TV to do something a bit more active, like playing Scrabble? Not that active. I hope when this is all done, I'm excited to go out, probably for a nice long hike. It's a beautiful day. I live very close to these great trails that run along a river and go through a cemetery. So Jackson's looking at a nicely balanced rack. His first thought will be, is there a bingo? Down to the L, through the A, the G. You would have played knob and brushing to keep the board more alive, perhaps? I liked dumping that P. He already had the Z. He's... Okay, fell in. That's smart. That's very smart. Leaving rent is a leave, so Jackson's not going down without a fight. There still is that other blank to pick up. He's not down by all that much. No, it does have the X, but he also has 2 V's. 1 V is bad enough, 2 V's is quite terrible. And Jackson's drawn a beautiful rack. So on this board, the S would be very nicely to hook that word key. A G out in space and ing ending is something to consider. Noah is going to want to find a way to get rid of some of those V's, perhaps score if he can, and perhaps clog things up so that Jackson cannot make a comeback here. So the only front hook to rushing are the B or the C that I identified earlier. Noah doesn't have either. He has an O that could go above the P, but he's not going to just play something small like that. Let's see what Quackle finds. Quackle's thinking Vox beneath the GA of Gallop. That would be its best equity play. And it does score nicely. It does get rid of some of his clunkers. One of the problems is it gives a lot back. So by playing an X beneath that A, there's a double letter score above that. And if Jackson, you can see he has an M, for example, he'd be able to play that M and go in either direction and get his M times 4, also get the points of the X. So while it is a good play, it also gives a lot back. Joey's suggesting just dumping both V's to play Vav, and that makes a lot more sense. It kills potentials of bingos ending in ing or hitting that A or that L, so it kills 3 of the lanes for 8s. Noah's going to be upset that he can't do anything about the S hook onto key, so he will play Vox. I, I'm with Joey. I would have liked to see Vav come down here. But Vita does have potential as a bingo lead. As bad as the V is, it does bingo more than a lot of the other poorer tiles. And look at that. Noah has drawn another blank, so don't go anywhere, folks. This set still has life. Um, it wasn't a good draw, Tro, but he drew a blank, and that's all it takes with his 74-point lead. Yeah, I don't like Fox either. It's just giving Jackson a very easy way to score about 30 points back. And when you have the X, you want to score with it, but you also want to score with it in a way that doesn't allow your opponent to get cheap points back. So yeah, that's what Joey just said. Um, I'm a bit surprised Noah didn't play Vav, but because he drew that blank, I think he's still looking like he's in a pretty good position. Jackson is now considering remade across the bottom right portion of the board through the D and zinged, instead of taking those easy points above axe. Yeah, I don't know where the X is going, but with his lead, I don't think he necessarily had to have the plan set up right away. That would be my initial thoughts. Not saying I'm right, just um, how I was sort of thinking there. You might see Noah play something like that now, which would really close things down. Now that he has the blank, he doesn't have to be... Oh, does he have a bingo? He's writing it down quickly. Aviation, yeah. So I was seeing that he was close to a word like aviation. I misread the letters. I thought he was one off. Axe will be a word in the next update. There's no doubt in my mind. It is not a word yet, at least in this dictionary. And hopefully anti-vax will be a word too. So that would play as a 7, as a bingo. Jackson needs the A to be a bit more to the left in aviation to play a word like calance. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Calant? Is that a French word perhaps? Let's define it. It's a Scottish word. So I'm not going to try an accent. I'm terrible at accents. I do have a Scottish uncle. He could probably pronounce that word nicely. Yeah, it is a great bingo. The V stops Jackson from going up to that triple word score. Those tiles are pretty hard to hit 8s ending in or through. So Jackson's going to just take the points with Cal. That C is going to sit there forever, so there will be a potential to go down to that C. When I say it's going to be there forever, it means it's hard to overlap above it, so Noah's not going to be able to block that lane. So we could see later in the game a desperation attempt to fish for something that hits that lane, because I think the other lanes are going to get blocked a lot sooner. Jackson's drawn into no vowels. He's in serious trouble. It's now looking like Noah is going to take this game and prevent the sweep, but let's not speak too quickly. It's definitely looking strongly in Noah's favor, but there's still a lot of Scrabble to be played in this one. If you're Noah, I haven't looked at Quackle yet, but I feel like it's going to suggest something like mauve, which would be a disastrous idea. It would get rid of that AUE, but it would it would open that double word lane, the 4th lane down on the board. I agree, Bonehead, this one's probably over, but especially knowing Jackson's rack, but Noah has 12 minutes left, and he's going to take time to make sure he's making the right play. He does have some options. I love the idea of makeup down to the P. It really kills playing through easier tiles of aviation. It's hard to end a word in M or K. I guess the E would be sort of easy to end a word with, but that bingo wouldn't score a lot. Also the E and then a space before the T, so a word could end in EST or something, but again, that bingo is probably only going to score about 60, and Noah can withstand that, especially with the blank. He's going to continue to want to find a play probably that obscures that hook of key, not wanting to give up an 80-point bingo perhaps. So when you're looking at potential bingos, you want to not only see where they can play, but how much they would really score. Hooking a word with a Q on it, 10, 11, 12, 16, that's already worth 16 points that you're going to get if you're hooking that word, plus whatever you're playing. And there are 2 triple letter scores that would be hit in a bingo formed there. Yeah, Churro would play makeup as long as she could hook the word purple to the P. But, oh, and a shout out to Churro. We have so many great streamers in the chat. So he's not thinking makeup with the, oh, he doesn't have a blank. I keep thinking he's the blank, but he already played it with aviation. The blanks are gone. So he plays Umiak. It does take away big bingos to the C, but I would have favored makeup there. Because he has kept things open. It'll make it a bit easier tonight. A bit easier to make bingos through aviation, or from the U, and unbingo perhaps, or from the M. Oh, good to see Churro. We'll be back streaming. She's a Scrabble streamer. And Jackson reaches up and does probably the only thing he can do there, which is just drop the J for 10, playing the word Taj. Taj, Raj, and Haj. Those are the very common 3-letter words ending in J that, even if you don't want to study words, it would be great if you could remember those ones, because they come up a lot. He hasn't hit the clock yet, but I guess you really have to look at the vowel-consonant ratio. From his perspective, there are E, E, I, O blank as potential vowels. And then he can also think about the vowels from the U in Umiak and A, I, A in aviation, but he's not in a good position. His winning chances, as Bonehead said, are pretty much nothing. This one looks to be over, but you still want to make the best play every turn you can. He's going to play Jin here to set up the D. I thought when he pulled it back that might be a consideration. Wait, so he had TRSLTJN, and he played Jin, okay. There is one D unseen, and he has drawn it. So I think what he's thinking is, for his path to victory, he has to both hit a scoring play with Jin and bingo. Even that might not be enough, because Noah's going to be scoring along the way. The lead is now 108 for Noah. So I guess Jackson's thought is if he could get a 40-point play or so with a Jin word, and then also bingo scoring about 60 or 70, maybe he can catch up. But as I try and do this math, you can see that even still, it's not really going to be enough. But it does give Noah a lot to think about. He is going to want to block there. He sees that 1S is out, so he might not even block there as much as making sure that the key hook is blocked. Let me show you the pool from Noah's perspective. That's what I'm looking at now. From Noah's perspective. So Noah's looking at some pretty promising tiles. Detours is a possibility of a bingo Jackson could be sitting on. And with 9 unseed tiles, so when I was talking about the potential routes Jackson could play, I wasn't realizing how few tiles were left in the bag. So Jackson doesn't have time to play both a short play to score and a bingo, meaning this one is pretty much officially over. And so Noah knows he can't lose, and so we'll just take some points, take out that big lane where something like detours could have come down, and say, if you want that gin spot, it's all yours. It's not enough. I hope I've been entering these racks right. I get a bit distracted going back and forth between Quackle and the chat and the game. And sure, I was happy to see Noah win.
Yep. In 436, right? 336. 366? 3. Oh no, you're right. 36. Yeah. Should I fill out the slip? Do I need to fill out the slip? Okay.
This whole time, no one needed to fill out the slip. Never be this.
But even before this match.
It's not. It's just
Before this match,
I guess it helped.
More convenient.
That did help because we were off schedule. So let's put.
Yeah, Jared's screen froze.
It'll be back soon.
What?
Jared's screen froze. He's just restarting his PC.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
You guys want to take a short break?
Yeah, it's funny though.
Okay.
Play just decide the whole game.
What's that?
Well, it's funny. The first play decide the whole game. Like you just see everything transpiring in the future. Like,
Yeah. Well, so you had one.
Oh fuck me.
Oh. Is this real life? Hey, Jared, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah, maybe. Okay, could you try the other mic you had?
Yeah. Oh,
HWA.
on. Is this better?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. It was fine already. Are you able to reshare the Quackle in the same way it was?
I can. It just I don't have the last game. When I restarted my computer, it was gone.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Um, I just have to figure out what I'm doing here. Share
Juan is not
screen.
Really? I thought it was James and Sean. No, just Sean. Really? Yeah, so it could have been really interesting. Huh. You played Juan, and then it was hooked.
I'll be back in 1 minute, Josh.
Hey, no problem. I think people can hear you. Hold on a sec, everyone. The Iram that takes an S? Is that not gonna see there? Which? Iram? How do you spell that? IHRAM. That one takes an S, right? Really?
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about those technical difficulties at the end of the game. My whole computer froze, maybe because I'm trying to stream so much and putting too much demand on it, but we're back, everything is working, and Noah has managed to win his first game of this final set, and he's looking to go on a streak to make things interesting. I believe the players are about ready to start, and let's see how this goes. Perhaps Josh will run another prediction, see if people will think Noah can take a second win here. Churro is rooting for Noah. I'm also rooting for Noah to extend this set. Noah has his trusty notebook on which he was teaching me some very complicated math that sort of went over my head. Uh-oh, Jackson has that first bingo and a beautiful rack to go with it. He'll have many, many bingos he could play. Let's see if the chat can find some. For a common word, you could look for an R, or a W even, which wouldn't be common. It would be a common word, but not the common letter you might think to look for. I'm going to write out some of these alphagrams, as we call them, which is the word spelled out in alphabetical order. Yeah, oh, Adam sees that Noah's going to have the bingo back, so another common word from a more medical perspective. Another common word, but often spelled with an O. So let's see, Jackson has outsail set up on his rack. What he's going to want to be thinking here is he probably doesn't want to put a bingo that will allow an S hook to be played, although he is going to do that. I think one of the reasons he's happy with this is the only vowel he's putting beside a multiplier is a U, which isn't as dangerous, and the S isn't hung in a dangerous spot either. So it's not just good enough to find the bingo, you want to find the right bingo. Other options there were plays like Halidus, which is bad breath maybe, outsail, rituals, fistula, duelist, tissual, thulias, tabulis, lawsuits. So there was lots of bingos he could have hit there. He hasn't hit his clock yet, so he is still thinking if this is the specific bingo he wishes to play. And now he's going to play fistula. And this is really volatile because there are a lot of different hooks to fistula. ERS all come to mind. This time, I have to put it in the right position. Let me fix that. This time he doesn't hang any vowels in front of the multipliers except for the A at the bottom. But perhaps he wants a more open board against Noah, and this would certainly lead to that likely. The bingo that Adam found was also found by Noah, and once again, quite quickly, he's confident that it's the only bingo. It shows such a good word knowledge, because even if I had seen that word of acyloins, which I'll define, I would have kept going to make sure there wasn't a safer bingo I could have played. You can see the definitions showing that it's a chemistry word. Jackson's rack is not too pretty. Probably look to play through the A of acyloins if you can find something where the havoc would score a lot. That's looking to me like it's gotta be the best play. But he has voila perhaps set up on his rack. Oh, zirconial. Yeah, that's plausible sounding. A lot of those words ending in A do take an L back hook. Now he has lock set up, although that might not be what he's thinking of playing, just how he sort of arranged the tiles. I think if he had seen Havoc, he would have been playing it by now. If he was thinking something like lock, he could play lake, Laich. I believe that's another one of those Scottish words, and at least then the H would hit the multiplier. Getting a bit concerned he hasn't seen Havoc. Yeah, Havoc. Lice Rot P, welcome, is suggesting as a possible extension to Havoc if Havoc comes down. That would be really good for Noah, because times 3 for the H, the B, the C, the K, the D, there would be a lot of points to be had. So he's going to play Cholic, C-H-O-L-I-C. Is that a word? No, Crackle doesn't like it. I don't. It looked funny to me too, and Noah instantly challenged it, so Jackson missed Havoc, I'm pretty sure. And now he's going to lose his turn after playing an invalid word that Noah correctly challenged. That's a great play by great challenge by Noah, I should say. And now Noah will look to play something through that A, I would imagine, or he can hook an E onto Fistula. He could play through the L. He has a lot to consider because he now knows that Jackson has these tiles, H-O-L-I-C. So he's going to be considering where those tiles could go elsewhere. But just something like Kappa that he has set up on his rack now, which would be a Greek letter, would seem perfectly reasonable. I don't think he has to worry too much about adjusting based on what Jackson showed. As Josh notes that a choke could begin, that is a big loss there. Okay, he's going to go with Oaked. So that's going to leave a more balanced lead than Kappa would have. And it's going to score 6 more points too. Not a more balanced lead because he has 2 A's, excuse me. But he will take the points. We know what Jackson's rack is. He's been looking at it for a few minutes now. He continues to play a bit slower than Noah, but he hasn't been getting into time trouble, so I'm not worried in that perspective. He's looking to set up oval O, I think, down to the O, or through the O, or from the O of Asteloins. Through the O is how... Wait, is he... No, he's going to play it down to the O. And that'll help him access the top half of the board. Another strange word, ovalo and ovali. More molding. There's a lot of different words for molding. That's been coming up all day. People like to spend a lot of money making sure the molding on their house is nice. Anaphora, where is that R for Noah? He's drawn some high scoring tiles, like the J. He's going to look to play something like Haj next turn. Even though Fistula takes ERS, and there are a lot of E's in the bag, a lot of R's in the bag, a lot of S's in the bag, and another blank, neither player has the hook. So that looks like a spot that players think would be taken, but it won't be taken for at least the next 2 turns. Instead, Noah will play a great overlap, 4 overlap tiles to form Opa. And we saw him overlap 5 tiles to defeat Jackson last game with defeat. And 30 points there to extend his lead to 54. I think quite quickly, Jihad, so not only does Jackson have the J, but he can reach the double letter score on the top of the board. And the J will multiply by 4. Welcome to Sid. Welcome to the chat, one of our competitors from this tournament who's watching alongside Josh. This Jihad play is going to work out well for Jackson scoring wise, but Janana, a very strange word. I know Bonehead what he's thinking when he sees that word. A friend of ours uses it as a sort of Scrabble name, the same way I might use Jeep Placard. I'm not quite sure how Sid managed to get that many turns down in that little amount of clock, but he made it happen. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see any of Sid's round 3 match, but based on how it went, he's probably happy with that. I hope he's enjoying the action here in the finals. Does Noah not see Janana? Because I think that would be a very obvious choice. Jackson has a more balanced rack, but that G is looking ugly on his rack. Janana would leave FVD, so that's not ideal. 3 sort of clunker tiles, the D being less of a clunker, but FV certainly. I agree the G is not the worst tile. The Q is probably the worst tile in most games, although in other games it can be quite the benefit. You don't want to really look at tiles in a vacuum. You want to consider them in the situation of the game. So a G can be very helpful if it's going to form a word, but it can be very detrimental a lot of the times because it doesn't score much and it doesn't really play well except for those ing words. So he plays Fava, so that's going to keep things open. And it definitely leaves a nicer lead than Janana, but it does score 8 fewer, and it does open up the bottom to an S hook. There were S hooks available to start words, like from Opa, but this will allow someone to start an S word and triple it, so it's a bit more dangerous. I'm not sure if he didn't see Janana or if he just chose not to play it. Either are possible. Jackson can play Yager, like Jagermeister. I'm not sure if that's what it means in the Scrabble sense, and he does. Crackle found to play through up to hit the double-double of Graupel, G-A-R-A-U-P-E-L. So that would have been nice, but it actually only scores 1 more point than Yager and would have left the J open. So even if Jackson saw it, he might have left it. Where is this Q that you want to play through? Josh is suggesting Quinnin, but there's no Q on the board, so I'm a bit confused. Yeah, his rack is INNPMDU. And Joey is saying how the Q is the worst tile by quite a large margin. I definitely agree. More often than not, the Q can kill you if you have it late in games. You often have to dump it for 11 points or exchange your tiles. Overall, the Q is the worst tile, but it does depend on the game. The angles can be hard to read. I like to think I have pretty good eyes, so in this case I'm very confident it is a D. I'll try and read them out if it looks tough to see. Yeah, Fluric, Joey notices. There is another anagram of that word that's more common. If people would realize that it's a word, not necessarily a name. Pun comes down. Scrabblers enjoy making puns. So the anagram of Fluric is the one that will play. And will Jackson find it? Yeah. El Diablo, the devil, Lucifer himself. So a bingo there for Jackson. Noah's sitting on a bingo himself, if it'll play. It will, at least reminds beneath the auger. Anything through the U? Through the LA, maybe. Top players will not just look for 7 and 8 letter words, but also 9 letter words, often through 2 letters. That LA does look promising. He'll want to find something better than reminds if it exists. Is there anything through the A and hooking fistula, perhaps? Minder's forming Tory, so he does find the highest scoring bingo, but even though it's the highest scoring, it hangs that S in a very dangerous spot. But reminds up top would have been 12 fewer points, so he is going to take the points. Churro, that play doesn't quite fit because of the A in Fava, but that is a good idea. He would have needed an extra space. Yeah, Adam, and that's a good point. I don't know how highly you're rated, but from at the very top level, the Q is definitely not a great tile, but for people who hit fewer bingos, tiles like the Q and J are going to be a lot more valuable, I would estimate. I don't know for sure. I don't have any data to prove that, but you can score a lot with those tiles. So if you're not regularly finding bingos, and these top players will be finding bingos in NWL about 2 times a game, then if you're not getting those 50-point bonuses as often, then you're going to really want to score a lot with tiles like the Q and the J. So I think one thing that top players need to remember is that when giving strategy, it's often strategy that's been tested for the way top players play, and it doesn't always translate to everyone else. If you're not bingoing often at all, then I think the Q could be a very beneficial tile. Yeah, the V is quite terrible. I don't know anyone who likes the V. U, V, W, the end of the dictionary, the alphabet, I should say, is a lot poorer overall, although the last tile, the Z, is a great tile. And it can be hard for people newer to the game to understand how a tile like the Z can be so good and the Q can be so bad when they both score 10, but it really comes down to how easily they can be played. So wedges comes down, which is nice because it scores, takes out that big lane, but it does leave TT. You don't want to leave duplicates. There are words with 2 T's in it, but you can get into trouble with a leave like that. So Noah, look at his rack, very promising, as he has a 12-point deficit. This game is essentially tied. Jackson, I said you can get into trouble with 2 T's, well, drawing 2 more T's for a total of 4 will really kill you. He can't be happy. Noah's looking at this promising rack. Yeah. Okay, so Zoic, that's great. Scores well, leaves nicely. Earn as a leave. Gives him a small leave. Sid doesn't actually like the V worth 7 points, but being defensive, the V has a lot of defensive powers, just like the C does. for not allowing two-letter words. You can really put it out in space to close boards. It can also be used to fork a board. Jackson's rack is quite brutal. With the score close, 25 by my math, he's going to want to play through it if he can. Quackle's suggesting a 38-point play, but that's because I haven't entered Jackson's rack. Once I do that, his 38-point play will no longer be available. The best static option Quackle suggests is Trout for 21, leaving 3 Ts. All of his plays it's suggesting seem to be leaving 3 plays, except for Trot, which would only leave 2 Ts. I guess Trot would play parallel to Lucifer. I think we've seen a 3T bingo in this tournament. Toddy's, perhaps, or Taddier, something like that. I think he's going to exchange 5 and leave the TR. That would be my guess. This is a really tough rack to play through. Anything he scores with is just going to leave so terribly, and he's going to be in the same sort of situation next turn while only really gaining maybe 15 to 20 points. But 15 to 20 points when you're down 25 is nothing to sneeze at, so he's going to really think this position through. Yeah, Trout through the T, that's another option. WTT is not the worst leave I've seen. And it gives back a lot less than Trot. Oh, Trot plays at the bottom. So instead of looking all over the board, I just found one spot where I could play. I like this play for Jackson. It's perfectly reasonable. Because of the score, you don't want to be fishing, but speaking of makeup words, look what Noah just found. So he didn't play makeup for Churro in the last game, but he threw down eyeliner here, and that'll give him a nice 90-point lead. But Jackson has the blank, so all is not over. Yeah, eyeliner is a great find. He'll find that every time. He drew the Q again, so Jackson has the blank, Noah has the Q, and things are awfully close. Not in the score, but in the fact that it's not over, I should say. I shouldn't say it's close necessarily. He could drop the AX next to Zoic for a lot of points, but that would leave 4 consonants. He could look to make a play that drops some of those constants and maybe sets up the X, but the X is not a good bingo tile. He does want to be bingoing, and sooner rather than later. It is an S on Noah's rack, MTSEEQB. Noah's eating some sort of trail mix or something while Jackson's eating his pen. I would take the trail mix. Jackson's going to take the points. So 45 points, just can't pass that up despite that leave, and if he draws 2 vowels, it won't be too bad. Noah's working on his tracking to see what is left to come, but he's probably going to have to dump the Q, but he also, I say that quickly, but I think actually maybe you want to hook eyeliner here. Take out that spot, take some points, and is there another spot where he could play the Q if he doesn't play the Q this turn, and Jackson happens to block that I in eyeliner? Another thing to consider is how many tiles are in the bag. So there are 16 unseen, so that means there are 9 tiles in the bag and 7 on Jackson's rack. So from Noah's perspective, this is the pool. So he's looking at a lot of nice stuff that could be on Jackson's rack. He doesn't necessarily realize that Jackson has 2 T's, 2 N's, and a W, which is Probably one of the worst combinations he could have out of that promising pool. So, is he gonna play bets and eyeliners, or is he gonna just dump this Q? Is he gonna play QI or QIS? But you want to hold on to that S for the eyeliner hook. This is a really tough decision, and the ultimate outcome of the game could depend on how he plays this. So you have 9 minutes of clock. This is an important turn. I think you should use quite a lot of that clock to think through these different options. Noah's so analytical. He really enjoys positions like this. QIS is probably the safest. You don't want to get stuck with that Q, but if you don't block that eyeliner's position, you could get hit with a big bingo. The one nice thing is that there's no S's in the pool, it's just the blank in the pool. So even if Jackson bingos with eyeliners, it would have to be the blank as the S, which hurts his flexibility and makes it a lot harder to hit, which would support QIS. I guess you could just play QI and not play the S. He couldn't begs. He doesn't have a G. I don't, bets you must mean. He can, okay, so you're saying he can still outrun if Jackson bingos, and that's probably right. Let's do the math here. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 28 for QIS. And he is up 45. 45 plus 28 would be 73. If Jackson bingos, it's pretty much tied, and he's sitting there with BEEMT. So he could outrun. It would be his turn, but it wouldn't be a guarantee. Nitwit is a fun word. Jackson's too much of a competitor to throw the game. He's going to do whatever he can to steal a win. Even though he's in a comfortable position, up 6 games to 1, there's a lot of pressure when you're at that clinching game to just get it over with. As Josh looks for words with the insert for land, or I guess ladder, step ladder, that would be fun. Nothing is guaranteed. It's so hard here. I sort of like bets, but you don't want to get Q stuck. That's another way you could lose. I think QI holds a lot of potential because Noah holds the only S, so he could pluralize it on next turn. Jackson's not going to waste the S to do it. Instead, Noah looks like he's just going to block. That doesn't look like the best block in most cases because you can play above Met. However, he's gone through the pool to consider what could come down afterwards. And I think he's also thinking if he draws an A, he could play cats and eyeliners. Although there's only one A left. Oh, thank you, Bonehead. It was great to see you, and I'm going to see you soon. I will message you later on. Enjoy the rest of your day. It looks like a beautiful day here in Toronto. Yeah, that accomplishes everything he really wanted to accomplish, but Jackson with a volatile play. The problem with Noah's play was the lack of vowels he has now. Now he really has to play QIS there, and he doesn't have the option to block down below. Yeah, there was just the one A, as I said, and look, so now it's gotten really dangerous for Noah, because Jackson has a bingo he can play to Rit, and Noah doesn't have the flexibility in his tiles to block it. So, yeah, and he has 2 Bs. I was leaning towards just QI, which I'm sure the sim is going to tell me I'm wrong. But I liked hanging on to that S. Maybe scoring 11 is just terrible there. It's interesting, if nothing else, that Met play. And that Rit play by Jackson. Let's not overlook how beautiful the play that is. He's looking at what the possible pool is. Bergs and Ritz loses. Yeah, he can't empty here. That's what makes the position so tough. Even if he wants to take this spot, he can only really take it by playing 2 tiles. So again, you have to start doing some math. Noah's up 37. He's gonna have to play QIS at some point. I think right now it looks like Jackson's probably favored to steal this game. No, there's only, yeah, there's 10 unseen tiles, meaning 3 in the bag. This is what Noah's looking at. So Noah knows that Jackson has great tiles and that he has very poor tiles. He's got to do something about that Rit spot. It just scores so much. Unfortunately, the board's a bit cut off, but there's nothing played in the square beneath the double word score, so Noah could play beneath it. But to take away the Rit spot, like as Josh said, Bergs is going to lose to one of Jackson's bingos. Whew. I would not want to be in Noah's shoes right now, although he's such a good player. I do have confidence he will think of the best route here. What would people in the chat be playing now? This is a tough call. Just BE and right? That doesn't look very good, and he'll get hit by intones. Is he going to play Bergs and just think that's his only shot? Oh, he's going to play through the ER. I didn't even look there. Berbers. That's going to lead to intones and game, set, match, but at least a clever idea by Noah. Yeah. Wow. We're gonna have to run a sim on that Met turn to see what Quackle would have suggested. If people have ideas, why not give them to us now before the sim tells us what it thinks was best? You can show off how smart you are. Congratulations to Jackson Smylie winning a lot of money and winning in decisive fashion. 6 games to 1 in the final set. Nobody saw this coming. Welcome back, 95 Horatio, a great chess streamer who I've seen after Josh has raided to your channel. Okay, just Ed being suggested by Kenji. I'm going to run a sim now on that turn of Met. I'm going to ask the championship player. So, because of the position of the game, it'll be a bit slow to run this sim. Earlier in the game, they tend to think through these positions a bit quicker, the computer. But it's already at 25% of the sim, so I think we will get an answer shortly from what championship player thinks would have been the best position. Jackson and Noah are going to run through it live, and Josh is also bouncing around trying to figure this out. I think Sid is around somewhere too, perhaps in the other room. These are the sort of players like this could discuss for hours. I think they're looking more on the Berbers turn, but I think the Met turn is where everything really switched. I felt like dumping the Q there in some sense was really important, but that was just my inclination. Doesn't mean I'm right. So the sim likes QIS the best, valuing it at an 84% win percentage and a 3.8 valuation. It has Met as the second best play at 82.58%, but with a negative 9.8 valuation. So QIS 83.79% versus Met 82.58%. we're talking about fractions of a percentage here. But let me just add in the singular QI, and let's start running the sim of these different plays. QI has jumped to the top of the sim, but we're only 50 iterations in. Often in a play like this, you really want to run through things about 1,000 times at least. It's saying here that just playing off the Q for QI is a 96% win percentage, the top play, through 150 iterations or so. And it has QIS a second, so it is following my intuition that you did have to drop the Q.
Seems like so much.
Bearbers, you had
57 for cuts?
Yeah, 55.
No?
Okay, to make this sim quicker, if you guys decide to use Quackle, one thing you can do is get rid of a lot of the lower scoring plays. If it's only thinking through 3 or 4 options, it'll go a lot quicker.
62.
I mean, depends who you draw. Because I'm gonna draw one tile. So I'm drawing.
So
terrible. Like, what if you just fish?
Wait, what's that?
second QI, about a 95% win percentage.
And you have one more tile.
QIS, 83% or so win percentage.
482.
And Met about 80% win percentage. This is at approaching 1,000
Even if I take whatever the best.
sims.
64. I need like 18 to tie.
Now Met has gone up to about 81.
Unless I somehow block cats.
So a lot to think about on that turn. It's also interesting to look at that Berber's turn, but once again, let's really give Jackson credit for that writ play. Players don't naturally think to just play a word like that and leave such a volatile hook in front of the double word score, but Jackson calculated quite correctly that Noah could have some ugly tiles and have a difficult time blocking, that with his blank, even if Noah took that spot, he could hopefully bingo to win the game, which he ultimately did.
Somewhere else. I don't know if there's a good spot though.
Grit, yeah, it was just beautiful. I'm very impressed with that play. It's unfortunate for Noah that Quackle is thinking that even after Met, he had an 80% win percentage, but it wasn't to be.
I guess that's only if I can block your cats with.
The sim is almost done now on the Berber's turn.
The other problem is
I think if the sim knew what Jackson had, Noah's chances were extremely low. But it's just going to consider what Jackson potentially could have had with the unseen pool.
71. I guess you get cats.
And okay, it's saying the best win percentage play is Seg and Writ because it probably gives up the fewest bingos. Then just playing QIS and ignoring the Writ spot, it has as the second best percentage at those plays in the low 60% of win percentage. And then the third play is the one Kenji suggested of Ebb at 59%. So Berber's not even showing up. Let's see if that is liked at all. It's lower here, but let's run a sim and see what happens, because right away Berber's jumps a lot higher. So a play that Quackle wasn't even considering was found by Noah and has jumped up about midway on the top list of plays. It still likes QIS or SEG or EB as the top 3. Once again, to make the sim go quicker, I'm going to get rid of some of these lower plays and start running the sim again.
I'm super curious about.
And QIS about 57%. So
Now we have like this big
No, they're going a bit higher. So the computer, I thought it looked like Noah was in huge trouble, but I knew Jackson's rack. These are approximately the win percentages. Now it's up to about 69, 62, and 60. So that's what Quackle was thinking about playing. You can see how we use these engines to run simulations to figure out what it could possibly be. But the engine's not considering that Jackson's likely to have kept stronger tiles on average. It's estimating that he just has average tiles out of the pool. So that definitely changes the valuations. He's more likely to have kept balanced tiles, and after a play like Rit, Noah might suspect that Jackson has at least an E, the S, the blank, stuff like that. And it is time for an interview, so I'm going to bow out. Thank you so much for letting me come back. I enjoyed both of my streams. I hope I improved from my first day to my second, and thank you all for supporting Josh's channel and NWL Top Level Scrabble.
Okay. All right, look at this crazy setup that I've got going here, guys. All right, so congratulations to Jackson for winning, I guess, this inaugural event. Yeah, I guess prize ceremony. First place, Jackson Smylie wins 740 US dollars. Because I didn't have change. But we can swear up if you want.
Hey, thank you.
And second place goes to Noah, winning 460 US dollars.
Hey. Well, I should clap for you too.
This is the most scuffed prize ceremony of all time. I'm also in the way here. So Jackson behind me winning first place. Noah second place. Sid, you can pop in. Sid was third place. And yours truly, last place. Woo! The three of us, other than Jackson, are heading down to Lake George in a few days to play our first over-the-board tournament, besides this one, in a very long time. So we're excited about that, but Jackson can sit on his winnings and be happy with that win. I don't know, Sid, I don't know. I didn't prepare any interview questions.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for Jackson? Or did you already discuss that you didn't like his opening play?
At what point did you know you
I have some questions.
All right,
Yeah,
Sid,
I
come
have
into
EOS.
frame. Come into frame. Come around.
Around like the.
Come around. Yeah, come around. Come around. We're gonna do this hilarious ceremony here.
Completely unplanned, but
Yeah.
it'd be fun to ask.
No,
Jackson.
no, it was in the contract you guys all signed.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So here, let's turn the camera towards Jackson and Sid.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, Jackson. What was? Oh, okay. Yeah, hi. Winning the tournament. Yeah. What was your most enjoyable part of this experience? Should take off my headphones.
I enjoyed playing live Scrabble again.
That's awesome.
I enjoyed every game.
Yeah. What was your one favorite move of any kind? If you have one?
My favorite move was Rit because it was
this game?
aggressive and it worked out well.
Oh, okay. I'm glad it
That's
worked
exactly
out well.
my favorite move.
As you guys can see, Jackson won this final in a dominating fashion. So, congrats again. Yeah.
Alright. Thanks
Yeah.
That's all we need to do.
What's your biggest last one? What's your biggest takeaway in terms of style of play from all of your games? Or you can talk about one specific matchup, or you can talk about
Yeah.
all of your games as a whole. What was one of your biggest takeaways? And then
I feel like me, Josh, and Noah have pretty similar styles at this point. Not entirely, maybe, but like fairly similar styles. It's just you that has a much different style, and that fucked me over for sure. So I still want insight on how to deal with that style.
thank you.
I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. I'm sure we have some differences. I think maybe I'm more aggressive or something, but we're fairly similar.
My takeaway was playing fast actually works pretty well. I mean, like,
Yeah.
and 20-minute games are fun.
Oh, hold on.
All right, I'm done.
Thanks.
Noah just said that playing fast is fun. 20-minute games. Yeah. So this was the first time that I've played in such an event. There have been 1 or 2 events before this that were 20-minute clocks.
I played one. Well, maybe it was different.
Sure. But yeah, I think this is really great. I think it's much more watchable than 25 minutes. And yeah, we didn't really have that much trouble. So now when we're in Lake George, 3 of 4 of us, we're gonna have to maybe slow it down a little bit. But there aren't that many improvements to be made. We all, I think, played at about the same level we would have played with 25-minute clocks potentially. So I think it isn't really that much of a difference. And I hope more events in the future will be run with 20-minute clocks. I know I will be running more events here because this was a very successful event. I think we did a good job playing and organizing and figuring everything out on the fly. And yeah, I really hope that next time you'll be watching as well. Yeah, it's been a ton of fun, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. I don't think I've ever worked this hard on like anything ever. I think this is like the hardest I've worked on something as far as I can remember. So I'm glad it turned out decently. You know they can hear you interrupting me, right? Anyways, all that being said, thanks again, everybody. I probably won't be back until maybe a week from now when I'm back from Lake George. But yeah, thanks for being here. The VODs will be available. I'll post things to my YouTube channel when I can. You can go and check that out if you want, if you missed anything. And the VODs, the videos of this whole event will be available for 2 weeks on Twitch on my account. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks so much to the commentators, Jared, Kenji, Will, and Joey. They also did a great job. I really appreciate the effort that was put in there. And congrats again to the players. Thanks guys for playing. It's really fun. And yeah, more events like this in the future. Hopefully we're starting